What's up, gangsters, and welcome to episode 400. Yeah, that's right. I just said that. Episode 400, 400, 10 times 40. That just seems bizarre to me. If you think it's wild, it's just really wild to me. When I made my first model making video just over 11 years ago in 2014, because it's right before Christmas 2025 right now, I never thought I would end up making 400 episodes. So I never really thought that much about any of it, to tell you the truth. When I started this thing, I was in the middle of my return to scale modeling. I had been away from it for 25, 30 years. Last time I'd made a model airplane was when I was about, 13 or 14 years old. And I was coming back to scale modeling because I had a spinal cord injury in the summer of 2009 riding motocross, and I was initially paralyzed from the neck down. Something I talk about a whole lot. I never really wanted it to be my identity, but part of my occupational therapy was just my occupational therapist would have me pick up marbles, put them in the jar, repeat 100 times. And I got pretty bored with that. And so I thought, you know what, I used to build model airplanes as a kid. Maybe I could do that. That would be a great way to work on my fine motor control. And my occupational therapist was like, yeah, whatever, champ, you do you. And I was like, oh, really? So you don't think I can do it? So I bought a kit that I remembered as a boy that, like, I only built monogram. It was like the choices at that time were really monogram or Revell or Tamiya or Hasegawa, but I couldn't afford the good stuff. And so I always just built monogram. And so when I decided to return to scale modeling, I decided I was going to buy a Hasegawa P51 Mustang, which I had no idea was literally one of the worst kits in the history of scale modeling. And it took me about 3 years to work on it off and on. First as part of my physical therapy, and then just because I'm like, hey, I kind of enjoy this. I'm going to finish it. But it took me about 3 years. And by the time I was done, I had collected some tools and a little bit of knowledge, and I thought, you know what? I think I want to keep doing this. I want to learn more. And so I found myself on YouTube, as so many of us have, looking for answers. And what I found was, first, for my engineer brain, there was just not enough detail and not enough why you do things. Lots of here's how I do it, here's what to do, but not a lot of why. And I wanted to really understand all those things. That's just the way my brain works. But the other thing was that there weren't a lot of really good close-ups. I wanted to see all the details. And so I thought, I've got plenty of time. It'd be a good creative outlet. I'll make some model making videos. And I'll try to make the kind of videos that I wanted to see or want to see when I'm trying to learn something. And so, as any of you who have followed my channel over the years know, that's resulted in two things. One is a lot of exhaustive and exhausting and very long videos. And I don't hardly ever look at this, but I think a total subscriber roster over 11 years of like 25,000 subscribers. So that has to be some kind of record for the slowest growing YouTube channel in history. But that's okay, because for me, the truth is, I never gave a shit. I never wanted to be, like, I never had a goal, I'm going to be a YouTuber. for me, it was never about getting one of those cool plaques to put in the, background for getting 100,000 subscribers, or certainly not making any money. It was just, this is an outlet. This is a way for me to say some things that I want to say, to, present some ideas, present my work, hopefully help other people who are on the same journey to learn by providing some good quality information. And that's all I ever wanted to do. And so I didn't really give a shit about any of the trappings of being a YouTuber. For me, if I get a message every now and then that says something like, hey man, I watched your paint chemistry video and it really cleared things up for me. Or thanks for showing me how to use Liquitex inks to weather aircraft. For me, that's always been enough of a reward, especially given how little effort I actually put into this. Because while I do have plenty of time, I don't have plenty of motivation for creating videos. The truth is, I despise editing video. I just don't like to do it. And so I've just got this really simple formula. Use the same intro, use the same outro, do the video on a very simple camera setup, which I'll show you. Because I never wanted to, for some people I think just doing the videos itself is part of the hobby. But for me, no. And so I was never going to get into all of the equipment. And so this right here is the video camera setup that I've been using almost from the beginning. I started out making videos on my phone, but this little JVC Everio I think is now about 10 years in, and it's on this inexpensive boom mic that I bought from eBay. These are some parts from Small Rig, a bolt that I chopped the head off of. It's a 1/4-20 bolt, so it screws into a standard tripod fitting. And then it's got this little ball head from Joby, and that has been my setup for pretty much the entire time. And I put the card in, make the video, take it to my Mac, put all the clips together, add maybe a little bit of stuff, and boom, done, post, YouTube, and cool. And that's all I ever wanted to do. And I'm admittedly very bad about answering questions or whatever. I never considered YouTube as like a social media platform. For me, that's Facebook. And so, I probably owe a lot of people apologies for unanswered questions, but that's just the way it is. So given all of that, I feel like it's been a pretty good run, and I have, I've had fun with it. I've been, and I'm super grateful for all 5 of you who have, stuck with me over the years and endured all of my nonsense. As I always say, it's much appreciated and much loved, and I truly do mean that, because you're giving me the gift of your time when you decide to watch one of these things, and I hope that I, in return, am giving you something of value. And so I'm grateful for that. Grateful to the fans. Somebody calling me right now. I'll have to deal with that later. Anyway, this is raw. This is the way it goes. This is the real deal. Yeah, I don't, because I'm not editing any of this stuff. Anyway, I've been super grateful. I appreciate everybody that's watched it, and I thought that it would be kind of fun to treat this episode like an AMA, Ask Me Anything. And so I threw it out to the guys and gals on Scale Modelers Critique Group in a thread, and they came up with some pretty good questions, which I've got right here. And then I told a few other people, so I've got a few sort of guest appearances anyway. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not necessarily going to answer them in any particular order. I'm probably not even going to answer all of them today. I am, believe it or not, going to try to make it quick. But given how long I've already been rambling, yeah, what's the likelihood of that happening? Anyway, yeah, so with that, let's answer some questions. Okay, this first one, this is pretty good. Actually, this is like 6 questions that I could spend the entire time on. But I am going to resist the urge to say all the things and just try and give good, quick answers. So, here we go. What's one technique you wish you had learned earlier in your modeling journey? That's honestly a tough one, because I started learning things like chipping and oil paint rendering, stuff like that, in probably 2016, so almost 10 years ago. I don't know. I could say that I wish I had learned, generally better weathering earlier, because that's always kind of been my thing. And it took me a long time. I'm still not there yet necessarily. So I guess I could say that I wish that I could have maybe shortened the journey to finding my style, if you will. Which build are you most proud of and why? That one's not too hard, because I feel like that my work has in some way improved with each successive project. But probably the one that I love the most is the 132nd Hasegawa P40 that I built a few years ago. That whole thing was one long, sweet love affair. There was really just no drama. And I used all the things, all my skills, and I loved the result. And so I'd probably have to say that's my favorite. Is there any particular kit that you wish to build one day? Oh, there's so many. So many. I can't even begin to answer that. There's way more kits out there than I'll ever have time or energy for. I keep thinking that I'm going to get a Tamiya 132nd scale Corsair, because I've never built one. I've wanted to build something blue. So there's that. I really would also love to build a good 132nd scale Thunderbolt. But I keep getting convinced that there really isn't one, and so I don't know that that's going to happen. What's one modeling bullshit you think should go away, or top 3? Yeah, what's your favorite worst thing about the scale modeling community? Perhaps a recap. How did you start all this scale modeling thing for people? Okay, I already kind of answered number 6. All right. So, yeah. And so then somebody asked to expand on number 2. Which build of yours from many years ago stands out the most to you still to this day? Yeah, still have to go with that. I may come back to some of these. But for now, I'm going to turn the page, because I'm in danger already of getting into some stuff that I could just ramble about. I like this one. I should almost have my glasses on. Lane McConnell asks, how about a small snippet on overcoming fear and doubt during a build? I would never say that I'm fearless. I mean, I think anybody who says they're fearless is either a psychopath or a liar. Maybe both. But I think that, for me, it's all about perspective. One of the techniques that I try, I'm a student of Stoicism, and one of the techniques that I try that I think is firmly grounded in Stoic philosophy is, imagine the worst thing that could happen, and then visualize all the ways that you might handle that, and then ask yourself, could I do that? Could I pull that off? And if the answer is yes, then go for it. The other thing is, it's scale modeling. What is the worst that could happen? You could waste a bunch of time. You could not get a bunch of likes on Facebook. Somebody might tell you that, your thing is painted the wrong color. You could, fuck something up so badly that you had to just go buy a whole new kit and start over. I mean, those aren't even first world problems. Those are not problems at all in my book. Those are just things. And so I think that you have to divorce yourself from the idea that while you may take the work seriously, that it's not that serious. It's like Matt McDougall says, it's a matter of knowing when to give a fuck and when not to give a fuck. So for me, being afraid is not really a thing. Like, I might be a little anxious about whether or not I'm going to pull something off. But if I feel like that's slowing me down, it's almost like reverse psychology on myself, because then I get really kind of pissed and determined, okay, I'm going to just do it. I've got to just get past this. So I don't really know any other way to answer it than that. But I think that having a philosophical grounding that you can lean on is really important when you're dealing with fear of any kind about anything. Okay, so, all right, so Orion Campbell asks, he says, your channel is definitely my favorite on YouTube. Look, dude, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. He says, but have you done a detailed video about how you use Liquitex inks? Yes, you definitely have not watched all 400 of them, because I have. And it was during the P40 build, I think, that I did a specific set of videos about that. But he asked some specific questions. Do you thin them? Almost never. Well, almost always. I mean, it depends on what I'm trying to do. Liquitex inks are fantastic for sneaking up on stains, and so I do. Like, I'll reduce them a lot. I have found that X20A is the best universal thinner for all the colors. I tried different things, and IPA, plain IPA, for example, made the white ink curdle, but didn't seem to affect the rest of them. And for whatever reason, X20A, which is actually a blend of water and several different kinds of alcohol, works great. So X20A is good. It also helps bind it a little bit with the surface if you're using lacquer or acrylic. So that's what I like for reducing Liquitex inks. Same thing for, he asked, what do I use to clean between colors after spraying them? Yep, all that. Have you built that 4430 kit? And he's talking about John Deere 4430. That is up there on the top shelf. That is one of two classic farm tractor kits that I own by the Ertl Company from the early 80s. There are hardly any model kits of classic, iconic American farm tractors. And it's, yeah, as a farm kid, it sucks. And it's a shame because there's so many opportunities to do cool weathering and have fun. All the things that you can do with armor, you can do with farm tractors, but not a market. And sometimes I think maybe it's because of like royalties, because, John Deere, they're probably going to not let you just produce kits. Probably some of the same thing that the car modeling guys run into. So anyway, haven't built that one yet, and I don't know if I will. We never had a 4430, and it has curved windows. The sound guard cab was curved in front, and the kit doesn't include any clear parts, if I remember correctly. So, got to solve that problem. The other kit that's up there is an International 1466 Turbo. And not only does it have all plate glass windows in the cab, but I spent hundreds of hours on one of those when I was in junior high, all summer, driving tractors It was the one tractor that we had on this farm that had air conditioning, and my hay fever was terrible. So much to the irritation of the other guys working on the farm, my dad gave me preferential treatment, and I got to drive the 1466. So that will be the one. Okay, best models you ever built, 3 ways. Kit, fit, quality of build, detail. Finish, your end result with the Pattison hocus pocus. Enjoyment, might have been a dog or not. Okay, yeah, so going back with enjoyment, yeah, that Hasegawa P40 still just, to this day, it was just fun all the way through. It was just great. I did some 3D printing, did all the effects, everything. It was just a lot of fun. From research, everything about it was just fun. I loved that project. Finish, end result, I mean, I don't know. Look, again, I feel like my work gets a little bit better in one way or another. So my most recent completed thing, because I haven't completed a model in a year. The last one I completed was the Kotare 132nd Spitfire Mark I, which I did with the red, white, and blue nose from a training unit, and it was flown as a bogey by some of those pilots. And I just loved that red, white, and blue nose, and I was really proud of the way that the finish came out on that. That, for some reason, I've built like more Spitfires than anything else. I don't know why it's worked out that way, because that gray and brown or gray and green camo that's pretty much always the same, it's like boring as fuck, no nose art. I don't know how I ended up building so many Spitfires and so few Mustangs, which are actually my favorite. But I am very proud of that one. I felt like the finish came out really good on it. As always, my favorite MRP lacquers, which I'll probably talk about again in a few minutes, they just always produce a good result. Anyway, so then back to the first one, best kit. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be that one. Look, the Kotare guys, I hope they hear this, because I do think that's probably the best kit I've ever built. The engineering was fantastic. There were a couple of places where the fit faltered just a little bit. Like, if I'm going to just go on fit, I'd have to go back to the Tamiya, once again, Spitfire, 148 scale Mark I that I built a few years ago. Because as good as all of their other stuff that I've ever built has been, that one was just perfection in terms of fit. Everything about it, the way that it fit, and the engineering was just truly, truly elegant. But the only reason that I wouldn't call it my favorite is because it's 148th, and I'm really a 132nd scale aircraft guy. So, tough, a little bit of a tough competition there, but overall, I gotta give best kit ever in my 40-something projects that I've done over the last 11 years to the Kotare 132nd Spitfire Mark I. It was just really a lot of fun to build, and they just did a fantastic job with all the things. Everything down to the instructions, the packaging, I didn't use the decals. But the details that they chose to include, to mold in, like super high value in what you get for your money, and for the experience of building it. Yeah, to me, that's a pretty easy one to answer. What are you wearing right now? Yeah, trust Ian Bonner. Well, there you go. Yep, my football team, American football, much to my chagrin, just got done watching them play and lose. They're done for the season. So, yeah, there's that. And this Armor All hat that I've been wearing for about a year. If you're a baseball cap guy, this is a pretty good hat. It's kind of ventilated, but not like a mesh hat. It's getting kind of itchy and gross. I think I need to get a new one. Anyway. All right, top 10 tools. Okay, this one is going to be a challenge. Top 10 tools, supplies, paints you were high on originally, but later figured was not as good as you thought and never use anymore. Yeah, I don't think I've got 10 because I'm pretty choosy. But okay, it's actually a lot easier if it's 10 things that I thought were going to be good and that I don't use anymore. Anything Vallejo paints. Like a lot of people, when I came back into the hobby, I started out with Vallejo, including their surface primer. Between tip dry and the primer not being sandable, it didn't take me long to realize that was terrible. I actually graduated, I thought, to testers, not testers, but Model Master acrylics. Whew. They had some good qualities, but if you ever wanted to chip them, it was like linoleum, so that was a no-go. And then I found Tamiya paints and lacquer thinner, and my paint journey has been smooth ever since then. So that's 2. The thinner line circle cutter. How many of you guys have a thinner line circle cutter? You know, the little round donut shaped thing that you thought you were going to use to cut masks round. Yeah, it's in a drawer right there. I paid $60 for it. Terrible. Not good. Well, I mean, it's not terrible. It kind of works, other than not really being able to dial in an exact size and doing anything concentric like roundels. Yeah, not great. So that's 3. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking around and I am super picky. If stuff does not have value for me, I don't keep it. I have no hesitation because all I give a shit about is results. I have no hesitation in throwing stuff away. One of my least favorite products ever was micro mesh abrasives. Yeah, you guys have seen me talk shit about them. Way more expensive than other stuff. Buy the little kit of pads, and they turned out to be super stiff and just rough. Left a lot of scratches, not fun. Did not like those at all. Xuron clippers, even though I have some, these were considered to be the standard at the time that I was getting back into scale modeling, and they were fine, but as we'll probably talk about later, found better options. Not great, didn't like them. What else? What else could I say? What would remind me of stuff that I thought was going to be great and that was not so great? I don't know. That's 5. That's it. That's all I can do. Okay, this question I'm just going to go ahead and answer directly from my phone because I need to move around. And this was a follow-up to what are the 10 products that you ended up not liking well? What are the 10 products that are your favorites? So this is more fun, and I could talk a lot about all these things, but I'm going to try and just do this quickly, okay? And not necessarily in this order. But, number 1, MRP. This stuff, I am convinced it's the best performing paint available to model makers. Yes, there are other lacquers like Mr. Color and Tamiya LP that are really fantastic and are just as good, but you got to mix them up. And with this stuff, it's ready to win for general purpose painting right out of the bottle. So for me, objectively, it's the winner. And I love it. The fact that I can take it out of the bottle and just easily use it, mix it, whatever, makes it great. And I have plenty of it. And it's, maybe a little more expensive, but again, love it. One of the specific things from MRP that I love, that I use the shit out of, MRP Super Clear Matte, MRP 127. This is my favorite ungloss. This stuff is a super bulletproof and super durable, easy to spray, flat clear lacquer. Maybe not quite as flat or quite as bulletproof as Guns GX 112, but it's right here. I can take it out of the bottle, and in most cases it's ready to use right away. Sometimes I'll thin it a little bit with just some lacquer thinner, but it's just super handy and super easy to use. In order to spray it, number 3, Okay, this is my spray booth. This is a Posh, whatever you want to call it, 22-inch spray booth with air conditioning filters. It's not really on my list, but that right there is my Iwata Neo TRN1 that I've been flogging the shit out of for the past decade. Why is the needle bent on the tail end? Because I don't run the tail cap, and this makes it easier to unstick the needle. Because look, sometimes that happens. Even in a freshly cleaned airbrush, sometimes the needle will be a little bit sticky, and rather than allow the chuck to slide on it, because my fingers are weak, I can't probably get it as tight as a lot of you guys can. I just did some farm boy engineering, bent the needle, and that means that the chuck will never slip and the needle is never stuck. This thing has been bullet proof, and it'll do 90% of the stuff that anybody could ever want to do with scale modeling. People will say the Neo is actually made in China for Iwata. Shut the fuck up. It's actually manufactured in Taiwan to Iwata specifications and assembled in China, and it absolutely doesn't matter at all. This is an Iwata, performs great. Only thing I've ever had to replace was parts that got jacked up because I dropped it. That's it. My second favorite airbrush is what I call Frankenbrush. This is my little Krios Procon Boy PS275 that has needle and nozzle from an Iwata HPB. So it's a 0.2 millimeter needle airbrush with a trigger, and it lets me spray really tiny little things with a lot of ease, and I absolutely adore it. I guess I got to mention this one because I truly love it, even though I don't use it very often, and that's my Iwata HPTH. And I believe the Procon Boy equivalent is the 290. It's got a 0.5 millimeter needle. If you need to cover a lot of area in a big hurry, this is the way to go. This thing will move some paint. It will also run and comes with a fan cap, which is great, but most hobby compressors won't support a fan cap because they only move like 1 to 1.5 CFM. So this is one of my other favorite things. This is number 6, my California Air compressor, which moves about 2 CFM, which is what you really need for shop tools. But the reason that I got this one is this. Because it is super quiet. Yeah, not silent like a $700 Silent Air, but really pretty quiet. It's quieter than any hobby compressor I've ever had, and I've got it set up with a T in it so that I can run shop air out of this side and have like a blower or air up bike tires or whatever. And then on the other side, it goes to my airbrush regulator, which I have outfitted with a $10 high quality liquid filled 60 PSI gauge from Amazon, because the ones that come on most hobby compressors that go to 100 PSI are not only way larger in range than any of us ever need, but they're junk. And I found that they would have a 15 to 20 PSI error sometimes. So if you wanted to say set 10 PSI, you were kind of screwed. This thing, super accurate. And yeah, I don't change my pressure all the time, but I believe in when you select a pressure, and I actually need to dial this down a little bit. I usually keep it at 15. That when you select a pressure, that you want to know what it is and that you want to be consistent. I believe that the ABC of airbrushing is always be consistent. And so while there is no exact right pressure, yeah, I'll change that later. There is no exact right pressure. To me, knowing what your pressure is important. So that's 6. All right, let's come back over here. There's a couple of them right here. Scalpels. I love scalpels. So much sharper and more versatile than X-Acto blades. They don't last as long, but they're super cheap. You can get them by the pack of 100, and they're fantastic. These inexpensive plastic dental scalpel handles or veterinary scalpel handles are a lot less expensive and, in my opinion, a lot more easier to control than the fancy like Swan and Morton medical scalpel handles. The number 22 blade is kind of a general purpose blade that I use, and it's a great scraper for getting parts off of the build plate on my 3D printer. The number 15 blade is a great replacement for the standard number 11 X-Acto blade, and I use the shit out of that. The number 10 blade with the little round on it is great for scraping seams and things like that. All right. Right next to it, my Proxon. So this will be number 7, I think. This is my Proxon 60EF. It's the EF because it has the keyless chuck rather than collets, which makes it a lot more versatile because you can use basically any size that'll fit in there. The key thing is the variable speed power supply. So you can slow this thing down to like 250 RPM if you need to. But it's also fantastic because you can run other tools off of it at the same time. And I have a couple of other things like the Proxon sander and a Proxon screwdriver drill type thing. But that's the real magic right there, the foot pedal. Because I can hold things in one hand, hold the drill in the other hand, and kick it with the foot pedal. And it makes drilling much, much easier. So number 8 then has to be all my drills. I am very fortunate. I had an uncle who was a railroad modeler. Kind of an irony of that is that he was actually my half uncle. That's a whole other story, but he got injured when he was in college studying to be a mechanical engineer, just like me. This was in like 1961. He suffered a traumatic brain injury and spent the next like 7 years getting out of a coma, learning to walk again. And he was never able to work or complete college, and he became a railroad modeler. And that set of drill bits was his, along with one of my other favorite things, the tiny anvil. And I inherited those when he passed on, along with this set of wire drills. So I have drills that go all the way from that number 80.0135 inches, which is right at 0.3 millimeters, all the way up to about 1/4 of an inch here in very small increments. So there's pretty much no hole size in scale modeling that I am not going to be able to handle. And high-speed steel wire drills are way better for almost everything than the PCB drills that are so popular because you can practically drill around a corner with these things. They're just nice and flexible. Little tiny PCB drills, they snap off if you even look at them sideways. So this would be number 8, my set of drill bits. Number 9 is going to be pretty much any single blade sprue cutter. I got a bunch of them right here. I've got the super high priced God hands. I've got some less expensive ones, and they're all better. Even the worst of them is better than the best 2-blade nippier, which would be like the Tamiya 74123s. Those are really high quality tools. But like every 2-blade nipper, like these junky Zurons, it's basically a couple of wedges. And so what you're doing is you're jamming those wedges into the sprue, stretching it, and snapping the part off. And that's what leaves stress marks and sometimes sends things flying across the room, never to be seen again. A single blade nipper has an anvil on one side and a blade on the other side. And so what it's actually doing is slicing the part like a knife. Not as, cleanly maybe as a scalpel blade, but still much, much better because of how thin the one cutting blade actually is. These things are expensive. I think a pair of God hands will set you back like $50. Totally worth it, because unlike what some people say, you can actually make a truly flush cut that doesn't require any further sanding. And when you think about the hundreds and thousands of times that you perform that operation during the course of building even one kit, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a lot of time saved. All right, I think that's number 9. Number 10, Infinity sanding materials, my absolute favorite. They're sanding sponges, they're sanding sticks, super high quality abrasives from Korea, and I've never found anything better. Well, shit. Look, number 11, I got this brush. Where is it? This is a, that's a Winsor & Newton Series 7. This brush, yep, right here. This Da Vinci, if it'll focus, this Da Vinci Maestro number 2 has ended up being the best brush I have ever gotten for not only detail painting, but a lot of stuff. It came as a kit project with this thing that I've never finished, where you bought this figure from Big Child Creatives and they sent you some inks and this brush. This thing, it's better than my Winsor & Newton Series 7s. It has a belly that holds just the right amount of paint, and it maintains an extremely sharp point, and I absolutely love it. It's been honestly the best paintbrush I've ever had. All right, we're on a roll. Number 12. Yeah, number 12, my Mars 4 Ultra. Absolutely love it. This is a terrific little mini masking SLA resin printer. They're up to version 5. They're allegedly going to stop making the Mars version 4 series. But I purchased the Mars 4 Ultra about a year ago for just a couple $100 because it does not have some of the gimmicks that I consider gimmicks anyway, that the Mars 5 series have, that have proven to be really problematic for a lot of people. This thing is simple. It seems to be pretty bulletproof. It's got great Wi-Fi. With 18 micron square pixels, it's just about the sharpest, most high-resolution printer available, and it does terrific. It's also super reliable at thinner layers, which is a key thing. If you want to print at 20 microns, certainly at 10 microns, you need a machine that's pretty stable, and this one is. That's one of the build plates. I keep 2 of them so that I can always have a build plate that's ready to go. And then, of course, going with that has got to be number 13, which is Fusion. There's just so much that you can do with Fusion to create parts for yourself. Your creativity really can be unleashed. Yeah, sure, if you want to do more organic stuff or things with textures, you got to learn Blender or ZBrush. But for the kind of mechanical parts that we do as scale modelers, I don't think that there's anything better than Fusion. There's thousands of hours of tutorials. I do personalized coaching. And the power that you can have at your desk for free on the hobbyist license is absolutely astonishing. Recommended clear gloss. Okay, as with so many things, it depends on what you want to accomplish. If you just need a quick spot gloss, like if you say you're doing a cockpit and you want a really tight wash, you're going to use like Tamiya panel line wash. You need something that's going to give you a really slick surface. Then my go-to is Aqua Gloss, All-Clad Aqua Gloss, clear polyurethane acrylic. The stuff is bulletproof. It's ready to go right out of the bottle. I haven't found anything else that can compete with it. It's just easy to use, and in the rare case where that's all I need a gloss for, it's a utility gloss. It's hard to pick anything else. If I actually want a true automotive gloss, it's going to be a 2K urethane. And there are several companies that make those. People say, oh, those are super toxic, the isocyanates, they'll kill you. Look, yes, you don't want to have a lot of contact with isocyanates, but in the quantities that you're likely to be coming in contact with as a scale modeler, especially if you've got a good spray booth and you're wearing a mask, yeah, I don't really think that you're in any danger with a 2K clear urethane gloss. And they are so forgiving and easy to spray. Just don't leave it in your airbrush, because you ain't getting it out of there if you do. And, you know, if you get a good one that really, truly hardens up, you can polish them to an absolutely perfectly straight finish. So there's that. If I just needed an intermediate gloss where I wanted it to be a really good gloss and I didn't plan on I didn't want to polish it, then I might reach for Gun's GX100. Their line of GX clear lacquers are fantastic. All of them are super good, super bulletproof, and highly recommend any of them. Okay, all right, let's see. Downsides and drawbacks of 3D printing, Mac or PC for Fusion 360, regular mouse or Spaceball mouse. What could manufacturers be doing to produce better kits? Wow, yeah, that's like an hour all by itself, but I can handle it, okay? Drawbacks of 3D printing. It's not plug and play. I see this all the time in 3D printing groups. You have to dial in your machine according to the resin you're getting. And you have to understand that there is no single rule about orientation or layer thickness. It depends on the part you're trying to print. Depends on the shape, depends on the size, depends on what's important to you about the part. Accuracy, surface finish, shape, whatever it is. So I would say that. Other than that, it's like there's no drawback. I remember saying, I first started using 3D printing where I was sending files out and getting stuff printed by somebody else roughly 10 years ago. There's some videos way back in my channel where I used some stuff from Shapeways and Reed Oak. And I remember saying at the time, this stuff is never going to compete with injection molding. And yeah, wow. I am happy to be wrong about that in at least one respect. It can what I was saying at the time applied to surface finish because layer lines and all the things, resolution of printers that were available. Now with a $200 resin SLA printer that's got pixel size of 18 microns, you can produce details down to 0.1, 0.2 millimeters certainly. And with layer thicknesses down to 10 microns, you can get fantastic surface finish. So from the perspective of what you can create, there's no contest with injection molding, and there's no drawback. Now, I guess you could say the one drawback is what will always be a drawback with anything that's not made out of polystyrene. You can't use Tamiya extra thin. That's why when people say, oh, 3D printing is going to take over scale modeling, yeah, not so much. A lot of us, the kind of guys, and gals that might watch this channel, we don't mind using super glue or epoxy, but I think the vast majority of the scale modeling customer base still wants to use Tamiya extra thin or something similar, and you just can't do that with the resin parts. You know that. So that's its only real drawback. But yeah, otherwise, it's amazing the stuff that we can do. Mac or PC look, I run an iMac. I've got a 2020 iMac, a 27-inch iMac, and Fusion runs wonderfully on it. I got it packed as full of RAM as it would possibly allow. And it's been one of the best, maybe the best desktop computer I've ever owned. It's almost 5 years old. It still runs strong. I bought it in 2021, so it's 4 years old. Hasn't showed any sign of slowing down. I've been able to do pretty much everything I want to do in Fusion without getting any sort of spinny beach ball thing that I didn't think was either something going on with Fusion itself or just a very, very complex thing, like a pattern that had, 100 instances of something, like a chain or a tire tread or something. So love that. I use a regular mouse because my hands are so screwed up, I can't take advantage of a space ball. And if you don't know what that is, you got to go look it up. But if I had functioning hands rather than lobster claws, I'd use a space ball. What could manufacturers be doing to produce better kits? Focus on buildability. To me, that's what makes everything else go. Because if it's truly buildable, then chances are that all the other stuff has taken care of itself. The fit, the molding, those things that really dictate the objective quality level of the kit, they have to be there if it's going to be truly buildable. And after that, it's engineering design. And you look at things like the way that Kotare built the landing gear on the Spitfire Mark I. You can count the number of aircraft models where you can truly dry fit the landing gear and have the thing sit there on the gear without glue on one hand. I think it's not that common, and it's one of the areas of worst engineering in aircraft modeling. So I can't speak much to armor, but for me, buildability is truly where it's at, and I think that what some of these guys like Kotare and Arma Hobby are doing in the way that they engage the market directly, and they looked to groups like SMCG that have a lot of really hardcore builders to sort of see what people truly want and listen. I think that's the other part of it. Nobody's asked me for my advice from any of those companies, but if they ask me, that's what I would say. David Oregon, this is funny coming from him, because if you don't know Dave's work, he's an Aussie, and he is an artist in every sense of the word. He builds miniature buildings and street settings, and his stuff gets shown in galleries. And he said, how do you cope with the fame, riches, and willing groupies and social recognition of being a well-known modeler while running the tightest Facebook group in town? Well, first of all, thank you for the compliments, and thank you for the compliments about Scale Modelers Critique Group. But I don't run it all by myself. We have a team, myself, Matt McDougall. We're the two OG founders and admins. Ian Bonner and Tony Lindgren are moderators. It's a team effort, although we don't have to do much because, as David said, it is super tight. The thing is very self-governing, and it's a great little community. It's only like 12,000 members, and again, it's something where we didn't give a shit about how many people joined. We just wanted it to be a place of high quality information and good fun. So thank you for that. Yeah, the fame. I have earned literally tens of dollars in scale modeling, and had one or two hot girls say they thought that what I did was cool. So yeah, that's about all I can say. You just have to keep it in perspective. All right. Okay. This next question is pretty long, and it's kind of all about scale modelers who are like apologists for bad quality, because you'll see it. There are no bad kits. A model is what you make of it. And I just completely disagree with that. You can have objectively bad engineering, bad fit, bad molding. The only thing that's subjective is, like so many things, how important those things are to you. If they're not important, then cool. But that doesn't change, if the slot won't go into the tab, that's objectively bad quality. Appreciating a waste of time or essential. I mean, I'm not going to say anything's a waste of time. All styles are valid, and how you get there is down to you and what you enjoy. I've been through the entire pre-shading gamut, and I consider anything, any form of shading that you do before spraying your base colors to achieve some type of tonal variation to be pre-shading. Whether you're doing it with a texture mask or through a sponge, or you're spraying all the panel lines, whatever it is, it's all, the intent is all the same. And I do less and less of it because I've just gotten more efficient at doing post shading. So, you know, yeah, neither essential nor a waste of time. Okay, if there was any one thing in the hobby you could change, be it kit design or popular misconceptions, what would that be? Again, yes, that's a whole episode, but it's pretty simple for me. And this, I don't think, will surprise anybody, because this is not just a thing with scale modeling. It's just a thing. Misinformation. Bad information. I feel like I'm getting a sunbeam. I may have to take a break and come back when the sun angle changes. Anyway, misinformation. I hate it. And it's not just because of my engineer brain, or, you know, if you're a fan of the Myers-Briggs personality type array, as I am. Okay, guys, I get that it's not predictive, but it never was supposed to be. Yeah, that's sort of an inside joke. There are people who like to shit all over it, and some of those people are from psychology, where they consider a coefficient of correlation of 0.4 to be high. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I'm an ENTJ, hardcore. We like the facts. What can I say? But I believe that as a whole, as an epidemic, as a whatever you want to call it, as a phenomenon, a social phenomenon, that there's nothing more destructive than bad information. And, you know, obviously it's challenging, because how do you know what's bad? How do you know what's true? You know, sometimes you just can't. And as more information becomes more available via the internet, and now with artificial intelligence, and it's becoming hard to tell what's even real, it can become absolutely mind-numbing and crazy-making. And I just try to stick to what I know. And that's why you'll see me, even after all these years, saying, no, future is not a wax. Because for me, there's always the chance that some guy is going to read this, thing about how great future is, and I love it for a clear coat, and he's going to find out that future's not made anymore. Even, S.C. Johnson didn't think it was worthwhile as a product for the intended use, which was putting it on floors. And they quit making it in 2021, and they'll go, oh, shit, I can't get it anymore, but it's a wax. I'll just go get some wax. And then disaster will obviously ensue. Wax is a very specific material category, as any engineering student who's been through their material science class will tell you. And so for me, I have an instant allergic reaction to that sort of thing. And I think the details matter. Like a lot of hobbies, but maybe more than some others, scale modeling is very technical. I mean, you think about it, there's not a lot of hobbies where there are so many technical skills kind of all rolled into the end result. And to me, with anything technical, the details matter. And that's why, when somebody says, oh, just use some paint thinner, I'm like, there's 100 different kinds of paint thinner. Well, just get Tamiya thinner. They make 4 different kinds of thinner. They make X20, their enamel thinner. They make X20A, their acrylic thinner. They make 2 different kinds of lacquer thinner, one which has got a retarder in it. It's a slow lacquer thinner. Which one do you want? those details matter because the results that you get with each one are going to be different according to what you use them for and with. And so to me, if you want to be truly helpful, and what's the point of answering someone's question otherwise, the details matter. And misinformation, as we all know, just picks up steam. It's like a moss rolling, or a rock gathering moss as it rolls downhill. It gets worse and worse. And so for me, it's just, yeah. It's a real problem for me, and you guys who see any of my nonsense on Facebook, you know that I cannot resist responding to what I consider to be bad information. And look, some of it is objectively bad information, and I sort of feel like that we all have an obligation as members of the tribe, if we want to leave the place better than we found it, to not put up with it. Anyway, that's just me. All right. Okay. What keeps me motivated? Are you striving to create the one, or is it little wins on each project? Taking on a challenge and problem solving seems to be a big part of what you do. Yes, absolutely. You get me. Yeah. Problem solving is my happy place, and I'm obsessive about it. Like, you know, there are days where I wake up in the morning and the first thing I'm thinking about is how I'm going to solve that particular problem. And it's a big part of what keeps me motivated. And that's become more difficult over the years. And I hope this doesn't come across as pretentious or whatever, but there are fewer and fewer problems to solve. Not because I'm, such a badass, but because once you learn how to solve the problem, there you go. Hopefully you don't have to learn it twice. And so they're just, with anything you do, by nature, there will become fewer problems to solve. So there's that. The other thing is that as I've gotten older, and this spinal cord injury that's now 15 years old has, worn me out more and more. It's tough. I mean, it's a big part of why I haven't finished any models in 2025, because it's just, frankly, harder and more exhausting and more painful to do the work. And so if the other thing is not present, it's hard for me to want to come in here and sit down on my workbench and do all that. And the other thing is this. And I think that this is really important with any artistic endeavor. You got to have a vision. You got to have a creative reason for being. And for me, I can't overstate the importance of that. For me, when I decide to build a model, do a project, I probably know what I want that thing to look like before I even open the box, or maybe even before I even buy the kit. Like, I had that Kotari Spit sitting here for a year, and everybody was building them and going on about how much fun it was. But I was like, yeah, okay, cool, I'd like to build it, but until I have a topic or a subject that I know that I'm gonna love enough to work all the way through that thing and go to the effort and spend the energy, I'm just not going to do it. It's got to be all about the love or nothing else. And I found that out a few years ago when I did some exercises. Like, I built a model just to see if I could build the IPMS sort of style, if you will, and take it to a contest and see how it did. And it was sort of gratifying because I did do that, and it got a gold at IPMS Nationals. But I didn't enjoy the project. The result was fine. I was proud of it, but I didn't love it. I built a 1/72nd scale Mustang for the Musaru Cup a few years ago. Hated that. Hated that model. Hated the result. Hated working in 1/72nd scale. Figured out that I'm going to try to do all the same shit that I'm going to do at 1/32nd, but it's just going to be way more of a fumble at braille scale, and it was no fun. And so I recognized pretty quickly that I got to be doing it for the right reasons. So that's one thing. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Well, you got to know what those reasons are. And this is a real hardcore part of my philosophy in everything in life, not just scale modeling. I feel like that knowing the why is almost a superpower. Because you ask people, why? Why do you like this? Or why do you like that? Oh, I don't know, I just do. When I was a kid, I got introduced to Zig Ziglar. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of him, but back in the 80s, he was kind of the OG of motivational speakers. And Ziglar had this Texas charm. And he always talked about how you got to have concrete specifics in life. You're never going to get anywhere on wandering generalities. And what he meant was, you need to know exactly why you're going to do the thing that you're going to do, what the goal is if you want to get there. So for me, like this guy mentioned, problem solving. But you guys know I love all the weathering things. I love an interesting paint job. I love something that's going to be different from whatever has already been built. I would like, as egotistical as it sounds, for the model I build to be the only one like it in the entire universe. Look, art is one of the most self-indulgent things that a human being can do, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you're going to put your time and energy into it, make it yours. And so I know what I love. I know what kind of airplanes I love. I know that I don't really give a shit about a lot of tanks. They may be interesting, armor, cars. What really, for whatever reason, and maybe it goes back to when I was a little boy and I was reading books about airplanes in World War II, who knows? But I love airplanes. That's my thing. And I already know that no matter how cool it looks and how well grounded my vision is for that particular thing, if it's not a subject that I love, it's going to be tough for me to stay motivated. So, to summarize, how do you stay motivated? Know what you love, know why you love it, and have a vision for the finished product that you can keep in mind along the way, that you can keep going back to, so that you can remind yourself why you're going through all the things that you're going through. Now, all that being said, I should also say this. Don't be mad or sad if your motivation wanes, because that's going to happen. That's just part of the ebb and flow of life. I have had three major loves when it comes to hobbies in life, and that's dirt bikes and photography and scale modeling. And honestly, dirt bikes, even though I can't ride them anymore, is the only one that I've maintained my true and undying love for all these years, like the last 40 years. I started riding dirt bikes when I was like 6. But my motivation for various things about dirt bikes changed over the years. Like when I was racing, it was all about the racing. But then I kind of got where I was like, man, everything is all about racing. I go to the races on the weekend. Then for the next 5 days, I prepare, I work on bikes, I wash gear, I do all the things, and then so that I can go to the races the following weekend. And I just got tired of it. And ironically, so I basically quit racing. And ironically, I got a lot faster after I quit racing. And part of that was because I just continued to work on my skills and push myself. But it was also because there was less pressure and I could just devote myself to learning to be better, even though it didn't necessarily have a purpose. Because the truth was, there was no purpose for me to be a local racer in the first place other than just bragging rights and collecting trophies. So for me, it became really all about mastery of skills. That was my motivation. And for an ENTJ, that's what it's always all about. And so I could go to the track and spend all day and hang out with my buddies. And while it was still competitive, it was more of a one-on-one thing. Hey man, let's see if we can, master this corner or nail that jump or whatever. And I got better. And so it was not like, my life is over because I'm not racing dirt bikes anymore. Look, your life is going to have changes. Things are going to come and go. And especially for me, I've had to cope with the scale modeling thing, waning over the last few years. And I've had to really be honest with myself about that and about why. Because you don't want to let go of it. You don't want to let go of anything. But I think that it's important to just like own it and accept it and just embrace it, recognize it as part of life, and work with it. And then it becomes even more important to make the time count. And so you have to really hone in even more on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how to stay motivated for doing that particular thing. Okay, Matt Flegel, always a buddy, always always great and clever questions. He says, after careful consideration, although a discussion of forms in Fusion 360 or what you've identified in your aircraft weathering process as the areas that give you the most leeway and creativity, I've decided that I wish a discussion of your view of the impact of the humble tamale on Southwestern culture. Yeah, it's great. Look, tamales, I mean, come on. Nobody has to justify tamales. It's a pocket enchilada, and yes, I do love them with cheese and New Mexico red chili sauce. The other stuff, yeah, we've kind of already hit on that. Forms in Fusion, just for you guys, if you don't know that, it's a part of the whole Fusion module. It's a whole thing all by itself. Very powerful, can be very useful if you need to make something, that is sort of organically shaped, like a seat cushion or an exhaust manifold. Forms may be the ideal tool, but it's a whole conversation all by itself. Okay, so the last one here on this sheet, Dale asks, what was your biggest motivation to get into modeling after your accident and the reduced functionality of your hands? I'm dealing with arthritis in my hands. I have a terrible time dropping stuff continuously and pain in my fingers and neck after just a few hours of modeling. Haven't really built anything in a while. This is being very frustrating to deal with. What keeps you going? By the way, your work is fantastic. Thank you for that. Look, dude, you've got my sympathy and my empathy. It's a thing. It's very difficult. I was fortunate with my spinal cord injury that I retained the ability to pinch with my thumb and four fingers. So, just like the dude who decided that he was so mad at me for saying that you don't need to gloss before decals, that he was going to mock me for my physical disability, said, I do sort of have lobster hands. Hey, it is what it is. I just decided to work with it. And so I've been fortunate. And the fact that I can use tweezers pretty much as an extension of my shitty fingers has been the deal. But I also end up doing this a lot. Yep, I use my teeth as a third hand, sometimes in ways that are absolutely comical if you've seen them, if you could see them. It's not at all an exaggeration to say that there have been moments where I was holding two parts together with some black that were allegedly stuck with black super glue and used a brush dipped in kicker and aimed with my face to set those two parts that I couldn't let go of until I kicked the glue. So look, some of it is just being creative. Some of it is using, clamps, fixtures, whatever I got to do. But listen, man, I drop shit all the time. I am clumsy as fuck. And there are days when I come in here and the first thing I do is I drop something. And it's enraging. And it's a good thing the camera's not on me when that happens, because that's not a side of me that I would ever want anybody to see. But I'm a stoic, and I just, part of that core philosophy is accept what you are dealing with, control what you can, don't worry about the rest, move on. But also, just listening to what's going on in your own body, and if it's not your day, it's not your day. I had to learn that in my athletic endeavors. If it's not your day, it's not your day, and the best thing to do is wait for a better day. But you got to just keep grinding away, man. That's the thing, and that goes back to some of the other stuff that I was saying about maintaining your motivation. You've got to have a reason for being. So, okay, here's one that came in at the end, and that was tell us about or he says he would be interested to hear about my motocross career. Yeah, I wouldn't really call it a motocross career. I never stood a chance of making a career out of it, although I was pretty good at it. I was, for anybody that's done any dirt bike riding or racing, I was an A rider off-road. That's one class below the pros. And at a motocross track, I was a solid intermediate rider. I started racing when I was in high school, and raced until I was about just 30. My goal when I turned 30, which was the year 2000, was to race 30 races that year. And that was a lot of work. But I did it. I ended up racing like 250 times probably total in my entire dirt bike racing career. And I did all of it. Started out riding enduros, did desert racing, hare scrambles, lots of motocross. I even raced flat track once, which was kind of an actual cool story. I still have the trophy from that. For those of you that don't know, flat track is where they just go around in an oval, and you're always turning left. And the bikes for that are very specialized. They are not traditional motocross bikes. But some of my buddies, when I was in college, and I was in a car club kind of thing, Society of Automotive Engineers, and they had this dirt track oval near town, and a bunch of my buddies wanted to go in the pits and look at all the race cars. And the only way you could go in the pits was if you were racing. And I was like, well, hey, I'll sign up to race, because they had a flat track bike event right along with the cars. And I said, hey, I'll just sign up and I'll race the flat track bike event. And so we did, and all my buddies got to go in the pits as my race team. So I went out there, and even though they put me in the beginner class, I was on a 250 two-stroke. This was in like 1991. And all these other guys, even though it was the beginner class, they were on purpose-built flat trackers. And they were like, oh, this kid's a joke. And they put me up, like everybody starts in the middle of the start straight. They said, we need to give him a head start. They put me up at the beginning of the first turn. They waved the green flag, and off we went. And I just pinned it wide open, fifth gear, because it was like a half-mile oval, so I could keep it wide open all the way around. And pretty soon I started to see across on the other side of the track, I could see the other racers, and I was like, something has happened. They've like red flagged the race, and I'm out here going wide open, making a fool of myself. But I wasn't sure, so I just kept going. And then the checkered came out, and I was like, well, okay. And I go back to the pits, and all my buddies came up. They're like, dude, what's your deal, man? You won. And yeah, sure enough, I did, and I still have that trophy, and it will always be something I treasure. Here's an aside that I kind of like. This helmet that sits up here, I still have a lot of my old helmets from my racing days, but this is one that I painted myself about 25 years ago. This was my first experience with spraying a 2K urethane clear. But I've always been pretty proud of this. I did all of the layout and the striping, everything. The only thing that I didn't do was have the vinyl letters cut out. So yeah, this is kind of a special thing for me. It's got my motto underneath this. Again, this is kind of hard to manipulate, but yep, right there. Carpe diem, baby. Seize the day. If you've ever watched Dead Poets Society, you know where that's from. I've got it tattooed on my forearm. That's just one of those things that has kept me going. Okay, so I got one more here. This one is from one of my favorite people on the interwebs, and that's Martin Kovac, Uncle Night Shift. He and I have been having a lot of conversations lately because he is learning how to use Fusion. So he asks me, he says, so you being, and I wish I could do Martin's great accent, it would be cash money. Anyway, so he says, he asks, I gotta fix this light, this is getting ridiculous. Anyway, he asks, so you being an engineer and a more technical modeler, how does it impact your approach to the hobby? And how does it set your works apart from the more artsy-fartsy modelers out there? Any pros and cons of this approach that you are aware of? It's a great question. I mean, trust Martin to come up with a great question. So I don't know that there's any pros and cons. I mean, look, I think all styles are valid. And so I'm not going to say that there's any pros or cons. More artsy fartsy. I mean, and part of the reason that I love this is because Martin's style is he even admits this himself. He's more concerned with color composition and visual impact than he is about realism. And I say that in heavy quotes because realism is honestly such a, that's a minefield. I got to do a whole video, an hour, about just the topic of realism. But, his style is very, what I would call it, illustrative. Lots of contrast, lots of bright colors, lots of saturation. And maybe that's what he means by more artsy-fartsy. And I love his style, by the way. But it's not like what captures my imagination. And I think that my engineering mindset does steer me more towards the parts of what's real, what's actually there, and what's accurate that I can see, but also that I enjoy producing. Like, weathering. I want my weathering to be executed in a way that's truly representative of the way it actually happens. And in my mind, I tend to break the process down, even chronologically, and I tend to go through the analysis of how does this happen? Is the crew guy walking here, and is the fuel hose draped across the leading edge of the wing like this? And what's the angle that's going to cause the fuel stains to run like this? And so, there's no doubt that it has an impact on the way that I think. And when it comes to the other part of trying to create reality, yeah, absolutely. Because you guys know, I love all the details, and I am going to look at the real thing. And because of my engineering background, my experience with manufacturing, product design, things like that, I know a lot about how stuff is made, and I'm going to try to incorporate that as much as I can into the details. Because for me, the artistic statement is to render it as close to the real thing as possible. So, if I'm going to make a hydraulic line and I'm going to use a piece of wire to do that, I'm going to roll the wire flat and straight before I start bending it, because I know that hydraulic tubing starts out as a straight length before you put it in the bender and do all of the perfectly radius. And then I'm going to try to do whatever I can do to make those radii, So, yeah, I mean, I have one project that I built in 2016 that I still love. It was called the Spitador. And I had been seeing a lot of these projects where people were taking something like a BF109 and basically just sticking wheels on it and, no wings, and making it some kind of post-apocalyptic like race car or whatever. And I thought, I want to do one of those, but I want to do it in a way that would actually be mechanically plausible. And there's no doubt that my engineering brain played a huge part in that, because I took the fuselage of the Spitfire and combined it with the chassis, transmission, and running gear of a Matador gun truck. It's a British truck that was used to pull field artillery. Even down to using CAD at the time. I think I was using Tinkercad at that time, and getting shapeways to print me some parts. Built a transfer case to get the power from the front end of the Spitfire Merlin propeller, shaft, down to a drive shaft that ran to the transfer case in the truck chassis. Yeah, so there's no doubt that it affects the way that I think about things and what I try to do. And sometimes I kind of drive myself crazy, undoubtedly overthink shit. And sometimes I wish that I did not. It's a thing. Sometimes I wish that I could just be a little bit more carefree and a little more artsy-fartsy, if you will. But it is what it is. Know thyself. Know what motivates you, and embrace that. And if you've got a solid reason for breaking out of that paradigm, then sure, do it. But look, I think with art especially, don't try to be somebody you're not. So, yeah, it's that. Okay, last question is a kind of a fun one. Give us a tour of your house and where you keep your models. Okay, let's go.
Okay, here we go. This is the studio at El Rancho Patterson with all the tools, the workbench area, the spray booth. My favorite kind of chair, the Herman Miller mirror chair. Yep, all the things. Some stuff, some shelves with some books where I do all of my photography stuff. And then over here we have where we do some printing. This is for printing photographs, wash and cure station, some 3D printing. Over here is where we wash some clothes. Yes, yeah, in there, that's a cat right there. That's the bedroom. That's where all the magic happens. Yeah, this is a family show. We can't talk about that. And yes, we have a sink. And then in here, we have the kitchen where we make coffee and all the things. And there's a cat again. That's Ninja. And this is my refrigerator where we have some sayings on the front. And right now, not a lot of things in the fridge. Some protein drinks. Yes, some yogurt, some Starbucks things. Yes, some things. And then in here, we have some Cocoa Pebbles and the greatest cereal bowl ever made in the history of cereal bowls. And then, yes, again, there's the cat. Ninja, hi, say hi. And some bedrooms over there and a wall with a photograph there that I made. And a dining table. And this is a table that I built about 25 years ago. And that's a couch and a fireplace and a chair and some more things here where I keep like all of my keys and my beats and when I go outside. And out there is my truck. And then in here is the living room. And that's a chair that I like to sit in. And yes, and there is a TV.
Okay, somebody asked where the models are stored, and this is the answer. There's not a lot of them because there's just not room, and I've been pretty fortunate. A large, or a significant chunk anyway, of what I've built has gone to a collector that I actually made a relationship with strictly from this YouTube channel. And he has been wonderful. He's bought a lot of my work. And when I said I'd only made tens of dollars, that definitely was not true because he's a serious art collector and he paid well. But anyway, there's everything. Old MAK project, one of my favorites. My robot project back there. The aforementioned Warhawk and Spitfire. some figures, some 1/48 scale jets, the Frankenstein AEC gun truck chassis with a Spitfire on top of it, my Mini Art D7 dozer where I really started to kind of get with chipping, the F18 that I built a few years ago, F4, my Red Bull Mustang from way back in the day, Revell 1/32 scale Piper Cub that was tooled in 2014 and I built it in 2015. My one and only tank, 1/48 scale Tamiya Sherman. The Hasegawa Mustang that I've talked about, that was my first kit back. The thing that I built for the IPMS show last year. My first Accurate Miniatures Mitchell. That's what actually earned me that relationship with the collector, because he saw that and he wanted one. And I built another one because, I'm just a whore. What can I say? The Tamiya 1/48 Spitfire back there. Take home, Kraz truck right there. So, yep, that's it. That's everything that's left in here, and I got to get rid of some of them. I'm going to make some space. Okay, well, there it is. That wasn't too bad. My goal was to see if I could get that done in an hour, and it's an hour and a half. So, as my videos go, that's right on brand. And just, hey, it's episode 400, right? And just like all the previous 399, totally unscripted, off the cuff, just, raw. It is what it is. And if you suffered through the whole thing, be careful what you ask for. Lots of people responded with cool questions, which I really appreciate. I mean, that would have sucked, right? If I'd said, hey, ask me anything, and there had been no questions, or there'd been like one, that would definitely have been a bummer. So I really appreciate everybody that's watched any of my content over the last 11 years. I really appreciate anybody who took the time to ask me a question. I hope I did a good job answering them. I hope this was some kind of fun, some kind of informative, as always. And hey, will we, do this again at episode 800? No, because I'll be dead. I'm pretty sure there's no way I'm getting to 800 episodes. Maybe 500. I don't know. My video content has slowed down a lot. So I just am taking it as it comes, as the motivation strikes me. So we'll just see what happens. Hopefully see you there. But as always, for every single one of these episodes, if you've watched it, it's much appreciated, and I genuinely mean it. Much love.